Thanks, everybody. As I said before, I'm more of a fiction writer than a poet. But I started a project in November of 2014 where I was going to write one new thing a day. And one new short story a day is rather difficult. So there were some days when I started writing verse, and so some of these came out of that. And this first one in particular came out of that, and also out of an old habit of mine, which comes from way back. So just before we got started, Kirk was asking me, when did you start writing? Well, in the second or third grade, there was an assignment we were given to, I don't remember if it was a drawing that we did ourselves or something we cut out of a magazine, but we put that on a piece of construction paper, we flipped it over, and then we wrote a story on the back of it. So when I was feeling blocked during that November of 2014, I would go to a website called Unsplash, and I would search for photos that you could use for free, and I would use them as inspiration. So that's where this one came from. It's called Turn. Turn. The bitter boy beneath the bed, he was born of 1,000 shadows, the raw material of a man. The raw material of a man, he is a puppy with raw meat in his mouth, a tongue he bites because his mother tells him to. Black blood on his teeth and on the knuckles of the fist he scrapes against the knots in the floor and in his stomach. In his ears, guitars scream, the way he wants to but can't. Fingers scrape against strings, calluses open and bleed, like his mother, who comes into the room and brushes 2 fingers across his quivering lips, lips that long to open, to collude with teeth and tongue. Shush, sugar, she tells him, you'll have your turn to scream. Later on in that project, I sort of took inspiration from wherever I could get it, and so this poem was written the week that Captain America: Civil War was coming out, and we were going to see Spider-Man teaming up with these characters on screen for the first time. It's called "We Could Be Heroes." Today I yearn to go back to the drawing board where I spent summers sketching heroes that could rescue me from anything. Maybe even this feeling rooted in my gut, a nemesis planted there by some vengeful sprite who sprang from my split skull, then slithered back inside to have the run of the place. I am no Zeus, she no Athena, but still I try to strike her down with words like thunderbolts. My daughters hear my curses, shouted out loud and at myself, and wonder if the words are meant for them. Pencil in hand, sketchbook on lap, I wonder if I can conjure the hero they are holding out for. Or will they have to rescue themselves? If they do, I wonder, is that so terrible a fate? For isn't our greatest struggle against the dreams we dreamed of ourselves that still hang drying on the vine under Langston's sun? Isn't every day a confrontation with the dreams we defer and defer and defer again until they are bombs hurled at us through time by the imps we used to be? Isn't every day a rescue mission where we are both the heroine and the damsel in distress? And when Peter Parker pulls on his mask and disarms assailants with a joke first and a punch in the teeth only after that, isn't he fighting off the tears of a boy who wasn't the right kind of strong? Who still isn't, but might be someday? I've had the pleasure in my time at Lesley, where I teach, of teaching a great number of writers who have gone on to be far better writers than me. So one of my former students, Jezris Kala, she published a book that won the Atel Adnan Prize last year, the name of which is now, The Magic My Body Becomes. And Jess was put out a call for poems a couple of years ago about whales. And I answered the call, but I don't know that the thing ever came to fruition, so I put it in the book. This one is called Aint No Ahab, and it does have some have some Italian in it that no matter how many times I've practiced this, I will probably butcher. Aint No Ahab. When at last the scroll unfurls to the place where I find you, I read the words, lost overboard. And I, the barren branch at the end of the limb you stretched outward until you could scratch the scrim at the edge of the world, I go overboard too. I imagine a leviathan, hungry for wooden ships and wooden boys, come to swallow you whole and drag you down to the locker of a monkey, the one with the tambourine, who made a daydream believer out of me. When the blue fairy comes, I wish a fate for you that'd make Melville swoon, roll over in his box, rise from the wooded lawn of Woodlawn, and take hold of the first thing he might find to write with. I want Herman in a coffee shop in the Bronx, sipping something artisanal as he scribbles down words that will matter about someone who matters to me. But all you've got is right here. A man with a name no more notable than it was when you left it to me, or rather to my father or his father or 3 fathers before he. All you've got are these fingers, this set of worn-down keys, bone-white and battered as you must have been when you stumbled into the sea, leaving the schooner behind for La Attila de Pesci e de Pescatori. Except there was no terrible dogfish for you, not even Walt's little monstro. You fell asleep at the wheel, like I did, driving home with 9-inch nails through each of my eyelids. Only you weren't as lucky. Then again, maybe neither of us were. Maybe if there were blood upon the wall I hit or on the waves you slipped beneath, maybe then there'd be a tale the world could marvel at, the way that we marvel at a fluke at sunset, at a whale holding itself high to say, arrivederci. Maybe. So this one is called Summer Loving, and any of you ever played with a magnetic poetry kit? So if it's been a long time, I will say that if you Google magnetic poetry kit, they actually have something on their website that will let you do it for free. So it will let you rearrange, and they don't give you their full set of words, but they give you a very interesting subset. And so again, when I was looking for a set of constraints, I had no ideas. I'm trying to write a poem or a story a day. I went to that website and I just shuffled things around until I found something interesting. So this came out of that. Summer Loving. 1. Naked porcelain, perfumed by smoke on a moist morning. My corduroys on the concrete, my coffee poisoned by caramel. I try to wash away the salt of sex and the ocean. Flies dance through the steam of a shower paid for by quarters. You dance back to your tent through the tall grass, the dew all you need to wash yourself clean. 2. Her fingers ache at a whiff of honey from beneath your dress. Freckles like flecks of rust on your chest, your thighs, the insides of your elbows. Once, when she was a girl, her brother dared her to lick the rim of her tricycle's tire. She wonders if you might taste the same, if you might also come apart on her tongue. Are we up for something irreverent and hopefully not offensive? There is, anyone heard of the card game Cards Against Humanity? This is not from that. There are other ones in here that are from that, but there's a website, Electric Literature, that did their own spin on Cards Against Humanity. It was called, Paper Cuts, which I think you can still buy on Etsy. And so it's very literary. It's a party game full of fill-in-the-blanks that you then piece together, and that's where this one came from. It's about as full of references as any of the things in this collection. So, and the last time I read it out loud, I completely bombed. It was fun, but I'm going to try it again. Drunker Than Dickinson. The Lord of Emo Vampires has convinced Emily Dickinson to do a keg stand in exchange for his collected works about F. Scott Fitzgerald's foot fetish. And this is not just a Facebook post from your grandmother or a Faulkner with a mild case of whiskey dick. This is The Millions, describing Zadie Smith's new novel as, quote, Elizabeth Gilbert's guru and a dystopian heroine with an anachronistic skill having a baby, unquote. This is true, baby, true. It's me telling you that having a baby is the anachronistic skill. So, picture it. Dickinson inverted, Whittier and Hawthorne holding her up by the legs while Emerson holds the tap to her mouth. If you squint, you can see Alcott in the corner telling her sisters that she's got next. This is real, man. Real. As real as Edgar Allan Poe's mustache. Maybe more so. Went better this time. All right, I think just a couple more. Okay.
We can go a little over if everyone's okay with that.
Okay. So my colleague, Aaron Smith, a poet who works at Leslie, I had to take over for a workshop he was doing for prospective students, very last minute. And I had I think it was specifically supposed to be poetry, so, or it was supposed to have elements of everything. So he gave me an exercise. He said, if you really want to have fun, don't do it in advance, because once you do it, the mystery is gone. Do it with the students and see what you come up with. I don't remember all the rules, so I can't give them all to you. But essentially, it revolved around writing a piece of nonfiction prose, all true statements about somebody, then writing one false statement about someone or one derogatory. I forget all the rules. So then you took those, and then there was a sequence by which you revised those lines into lines of poems. You had to, you had certain choices, like you had to get rid of the second or the third line. You couldn't keep both. It got more and more difficult until you ended up with something very compressed. And it was I loved it, but it didn't have a great title. And I was like, well, this was what I'm talking to. And I talked to my students about the importance of a title, because as we've seen, it gets read aloud, right? And that's what's meant to happen. So you read the title aloud. That is a way of cheating with this exercise, because the title can give you a whole other line that you're not necessarily allowed. So this is about my grandfather. Yellow swim trunks on the lime green grass. Sometimes he smokes in the kiddie pool, an ashtray to the side of it. My grandfather soaks, his skin loosening on his aging bones as his muscles diminish, recede. His skin kills him. He scratches till he bleeds outside, smokes till he bleeds inside too, ridding the world of himself bit by bit. He wears nothing. And it is a true story. My grandfather had very bad eczema, and so he would get in. He wouldn't wear nothing. He'd wear yellow shorts. So that part's a little bit made up. But he would get into the kiddie pool on the front lawn to ease the eczema. I don't know that I ever saw him smoke in it, but he did smoke. He did pass away of lung cancer. So it's a bunch of sort of piecing things together there. And I've tried for years to capture the essence of my feelings about my grandfather and written books and books and books worth of stuff no one will ever see to get to that 10 or so lines. If you ever get the chance to look at Elizabeth Bishop's drafts for One Art, you can see some of them online, and I don't recall which college has the rest of them. It's fascinating because the end result is this villanelle that's just so perfect, but the first draft is this mess. And it's gorgeous, and it's inspiring as a writer to go, oh my gosh, this is where it started. So I think you can find at least that first draft online. Okay, I will read this. We'll see. I think this will be the last one, unless there's a little bit of time. One thing I'll note about this one, it does use two outdated words that Vonnegut used in a quote to describe the semicolon. So I'm going to leave them in there as Vonnegut said them. Please forgive me. All I do is show you've been to college. Punctuation painted upon pines. A forest of question marks and interrobangs, semicolons too. I want to text my English teacher, tell her if it's good enough for graffiti, it's good enough for me. But she suckled at the teat of Vonnegut, who tells us that the mark is a transvestite hermaphrodite, as if that's a bad thing. Maybe, Kurt, I'd like to be spooned by a person in a dress with half a penis. Maybe the body comes in 57 varieties, not just the two that too many of us see. Or maybe I'd like to be in bed with my wife, dreaming of a me without wrinkles or folds to get lost in, instead of here at this keyboard trying to decide if or when or what comes next. Lincoln said that for him, punctuation was a matter of feeling. He called the semicolon a useful little chap. But I'm no president, no Vonnegut. There's no Indiana boyhood in my veins, or in the brains I rack now to find an ending for this thought that began with a picture of question marks on trees, with the question that wakes me each morning before the sun has its chance. Maybe a log cabin is what I need. All right, I'll have time for one more. Okay, this is Ode. This is from the very end of the collection. Yeah, and I couldn't resist the chance to throw this in here. Ode. There is a language scratched upon your pages that I cannot read, that you translate for me with fingers upon keys, with knuckles dancing beneath flesh worn thin as onion skin, by the bending sickle's compass come to fetch you. I never learned to read, but if you ask me to speak the truth for you, to sit upon the bench where you might have taught me, to make a joyful noise, I would conjure a cacophony that would curl your hair, and maybe the corners of your lips. Thank you.